The rain pounded against the pavement as she stood in the doorway, her suitcase by her side, her hands clenched into fists. She expected me to say something, to plead, to beg, to crumble beneath the weight of what was happening. But I didn't. I just stood there, arms crossed, leaning against the doorframe, watching her with a calmness that I wasn't even sure I possessed. Inside, my chest was tight, my heart a slow, heavy drum, but I wasn't going to let her see that. "You're really just going to let me leave?" she asked, her voice laced with disbelief, maybe even frustration. A gust of wind blew between us, sending her dark hair whipping across her face. She looked beautiful, in the way that heartbreak always makes people look, sharp, alive, tragic. But I wasn't fooled. I exhaled slowly. "You already made your choice, Lauren. You don't need my permission to go." Her jaw tightened. "That's it. After everything." I tilted my head slightly. "After everything?" I repeated, letting the words hang in the air between us. The weight of them pressed against her. I could see it. Because she knew what she had done. She knew why we were standing here now, with a suitcase between us instead of a shared future. She swallowed, looking away. "Adam, don't." I cut her off, my voice steady but final. "Don't try to explain. Don't try to make this easier for yourself." She flinched, just barely, but I caught it. And for a moment, I thought I saw something flicker in her expression, regret, hesitation. But it was too late for that. Too late for anything, really. Lauren had assumed I would fight for her, that I would grab her wrists, pull her close, tell her we could fix this. She thought I would be the one grasping at the last threads of something she had already set fire to. But she had miscalculated. I wasn't that man anymore. The silence stretched between us, heavy, suffocating. The taxi idled at the curb, its headlights glowing through the misty night, waiting for her. She shifted her weight from one foot to the other. I never meant for things to happen this way. I let out a quiet, humorless laugh. "That's the thing about choices, Lauren. Once you make them, you don't get to decide the consequences." She bit her lip, her fingers tightening around the handle of her suitcase. For 5 years, I had been hers. Through every storm, every high, every quiet morning filled with soft laughter and coffee cups balanced on the edge of the kitchen counter. I had loved her with everything I had. And for what? For whispered lies and secret messages. For hotel receipts and late nights that didn't add up. For the betrayal that had gutted me so completely I wasn't even sure I was standing here in my own body. Lauren had underestimated me. She thought I would break without her. But I had already shattered the moment I found out the truth. Now, I was just picking up the pieces. Her lips parted like she wanted to say something. One last attempt at salvaging the wreckage. But before she could, the cab driver leaned out the window and called impatiently, "Miss? We don't have all night." Her eyes flicked toward the car, then back to me. She wanted me to stop her. I didn't. Instead, I stepped back, gripping the doorknob, my pulse steady for the first time in weeks. "Goodbye, Lauren." Something flickered across her face again. Panic. She had wanted control of this moment. She had wanted to be the one who decided how we ended. But I had just taken that from her. And she knew it. She hesitated. One last second where maybe, just maybe, she considered undoing everything. But then, with a sharp breath, she turned, hauling her suitcase behind her, walking straight into the rain. The cab door shut. The engine rumbled. And then she was gone. I stood there, watching the taillights disappear down the street, waiting for the ache in my chest to crush me. But it never came. All that was left was silence. And the distant sound of regret chasing her down the road. The house was quiet. Too quiet. For 5 years, its walls had absorbed laughter, late-night conversations, and the steady rhythm of a life built together. Now, it was just a hollow shell. The air felt stale, like something had been drained from it the second Lauren walked out that door. I stood in the entryway, staring at the faint outlines of her footprints on the hardwood floor, where she had hesitated before stepping into the rain. My hand was still on the doorknob. I hadn't even realized I was gripping it. Slowly, I let go, flexing my fingers, as if shaking off the last remnants of her touch. This was real. She was gone. I walked into the living room, the silence pressing in around me. My eyes flicked to the couch, our couch. The place where we'd spent countless lazy Sundays, where she had curled up beside me, her head on my chest, claiming she could hear my heartbeat. Had she been lying even then? I pushed the thought away and kept moving. The coffee table was still cluttered with remnants of our life. her half-burned lavender candle, a forgotten hair tie, the book she had left open at chapter 12 and never finished. It was ridiculous, but I flipped through the pages anyway, running my fingers over the words she would never read. The lump in my throat tightened. I closed the book and stood up. Dwelling wouldn't change anything. Lauren had left. I had let her. And now, I had to deal with the aftermath. I grabbed a trash bag and started moving through the house, methodically collecting the things that were hers. A bottle of perfume on the dresser. A silk scarf draped over the back of a chair. Her favorite mug, still sitting by the sink. It was strange how much of her lingered. Like she had seeped into every part of this place, into me, into everything. But I wasn't going to let it haunt me. Piece by piece, I packed her away. By the time I reached our bedroom, I thought I had numbed myself enough to handle it. But the second I stepped inside, something inside me cracked. The bed was still unmade from the night before. Her side of it slightly rumpled, her scent still clinging to the sheets. And then I saw it. Her sweater, the gray one she always wore on cold mornings, draped over the chair in the corner. She had forgotten it. Or maybe she had left it on purpose. A thread tying her to this place, to me. I picked it up, holding it for a second longer than I should have. The scent of her shampoo, faint but unmistakable, curled around me. A cruel, lingering ghost. For a brief, stupid moment, I almost folded it neatly and set it aside, as if she might come back for it. But then I forced myself to drop it into the bag with the rest of her things. Done. I tied the trash bag shut and carried it to the front door, setting it down with more force than necessary. That was it. That was everything. I exhaled and ran a hand through my hair, pacing the length of the living room, trying to shake off the weight pressing against my ribs. I had told myself that once I got rid of her things, I'd feel better, lighter. But instead, the silence grew louder. I grabbed my keys. I needed air. The streets were slick with rain, reflecting the glow of streetlights like shards of broken glass. The night felt endless, stretching in all directions, as if the world itself had exhaled along with me. I walked without a destination, past the coffee shop where we used to sit for hours, past the bookstore where she had made me wait an eternity while she debated between two identical poetry collections. I stopped in front of the diner on 5th Street. It was late, but the neon sign still flickered. Lauren and I had come here on our first date. We had sat in that far-right booth, laughing over bad coffee, talking until the sun had started to rise. It had been easy, back then. Natural. Like breathing. I stepped inside, shaking the rain from my jacket. The place was mostly empty, save for a few scattered night owls hunched over their meals. Sliding into a booth near the window, I ordered a coffee. The waitress, a woman in her 40s with tired eyes, set the cup down in front of me. "You look like you've had a rough night." I huffed a quiet laugh. "Something like that." She nodded knowingly and walked away, leaving me alone with my thoughts. I stared into the dark liquid, my mind replaying every moment of the night. Her face when she realized I wasn't going to stop her, the way her shoulders had stiffened when I told her goodbye, the flicker of regret that had crossed her features just before she turned away. She thought I'd chase her. She thought I'd break. But I didn't. And now, I wondered if she was sitting somewhere, staring at an empty glass, realizing just how badly she had miscalculated. The first pang of regret had already found her. I was sure of it. The coffee had gone cold. I wasn't sure how long I had been sitting there, watching the rain smear the neon lights across the diner window, listening to the low hum of conversation from the few lingering customers. My fingers traced the rim of the cup, absently, mindlessly. I had always assumed that when love ended, it would be loud, screaming matches, slamming doors, shattered plates against the wall. But this was quiet. A slow, creeping kind of emptiness that settled in my bones, heavier than any argument ever could be. I pulled out my phone. No missed calls. No messages. I wasn't expecting one. Lauren had walked away, and I had let her. There was nothing left to say. And yet, some twisted part of me wondered, where was she now? Had she already convinced herself she had done the right thing? Had she buried the regret deep enough that she wouldn't feel it creeping in later when she was alone? Or was she sitting somewhere, just like I was, staring at her own reflection in some fogged-up window, realizing what she had lost? I clenched my jaw and shoved the thought away. It didn't matter anymore. A low voice cut through my thoughts. "You look like a man who just lost something important." I looked up. An older man sat in the booth across from me, stirring his coffee slowly. His face was lined with age, his eyes sharp but kind. The kind of stranger who had probably seen too much of life to be surprised by anything anymore. I didn't answer at first, just huffed a quiet laugh and took a sip of my now bitter coffee. Something like that. He nodded, as if he had already figured that out. Girlfriend. Wife, I corrected. The word felt foreign now, like it didn't belong to me anymore. He whistled low. Damn. Sorry to hear that. I shrugged. I'm not. He raised an eyebrow. That's so. I hesitated. Was I lying? I thought about Lauren's face when she realized I wasn't going to fight for her. The flicker of shock, the sharp inhale, the way she had expected me to plead, to beg, to crumble, and the way her expression had shifted when I simply told her goodbye. No, I said, my voice steadier this time. I'm not. The old man smirked, taking a sip of his coffee. Then why do you look like you just crawled out of hell? I exhaled, rubbing a hand over my face. Because I spent too long loving someone who wasn't worth it. He nodded slowly, considering that. One of those. I glanced at him. You sound like you know the type. He chuckled, shaking his head. Son, at my age, you've seen every type. The ones who love you too much, the ones who don't love you enough, and the ones who only love themselves. That last part hit a little too hard. Lauren had loved herself more than she had ever loved me. That much was clear now. The old man leaned back in his seat, watching me for a moment before speaking again. Let me guess. She thought you'd beg her to stay. I let out a dry, humorless laugh. Yeah. And when you didn't, it messed with her head? I nodded. Pretty sure. He grinned, shaking his head. That's the thing about people like that. They don't actually know what they want. They just want to be the one making the choices. He tapped his spoon against his cup. But when you take that choice away from them, when you decide that you're not going to play their game, that's when regret comes knocking. Regret. I had felt it creeping at the edges of Lauren's expression just before she turned away. I hadn't needed to say anything. She had felt it the second she realized I wasn't going to break. And maybe, just maybe, she was feeling it more now. The old man sighed, pushing his coffee away. She'll be back. I frowned. I don't think so. He smirked. You don't have to think so. You just have to wait. I didn't like the way that sounded. I didn't want to wait. I didn't want to carry this weight any longer than I already had. So I stood up, pulling a few bills from my wallet and setting them on the table. Thanks for the talk, I said, nodding toward him. He gave me a lazy salute. Take it easy, kid. I stepped out into the night, the rain having slowed to a drizzle, the city humming softly around me. I needed to get home. Needed to step back into that quiet house and let it swallow me whole, just for a little while. But as I walked, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out, expecting a spam email or some meaningless notification. Instead, it was a message. From Lauren. Lauren, I don't know if I made a mistake. My fingers tightened around the phone. She was unraveling. She had been so sure, so confident when she packed her bags, when she walked out the door expecting me to beg. But now, regret had caught up to her. I stared at the message for a long time. Long enough for another one to come through. Lauren, are you awake? Can we talk? I could almost picture her now, sitting in some empty hotel room, staring at her phone, waiting for me to give her an answer. Waiting for me to be the one to save her from the consequences of her own choices. I exhaled. Then I locked my phone and slid it back into my pocket. Let her wait. The message burned on my screen, but I didn't answer. I slid my phone back into my pocket, shoved my hands deep into my jacket, and kept walking. Lauren could wait. The city buzzed around me, people moving through the streets, neon lights reflecting off the rain-slicked pavement. I passed bars filled with laughter, couples huddled under awnings, strangers wrapped in conversations that had nothing to do with regret or betrayal. And me? I was just a man putting one foot in front of the other, trying to make sense of a life that had been turned upside down. I wasn't sure where I was going until I got there. The apartment building loomed ahead, old bricks darkened by the rain, the familiar fire escape climbing up the side like a metal skeleton. I hesitated for a second, then walked up the steps, my boots heavy against the concrete. I knocked. The door opened almost instantly, like she had been waiting. Jesus, Adam, Rebecca said, her brows furrowing. It's almost midnight. I shrugged. I know. She studied my face for a long moment, then sighed and stepped aside. Come in. Rebecca had been my best friend long before Lauren had ever come into the picture. We had grown up in the same neighborhood, gone through the same heartbreaks, watched each other stumble through the mess of adulthood. She had never liked Lauren. Not really. She had tolerated her, the way a best friend does when they see you falling for the wrong person and know there's nothing they can do about it. I stepped inside, shaking off the dampness from my jacket. The apartment smelled like coffee and old books, a familiar mix that felt like home in a way my own house never would again. Rebecca leaned against the counter, arms crossed. All right. What happened? I let out a slow breath, running a hand through my hair. She left. Rebecca didn't look surprised. And she texted me. She raised an eyebrow. Already. I nodded. She let out a dry laugh. Of course she did. Rebecca pushed off the counter, walked to the kitchen, and grabbed a bottle of whiskey. She poured 2 glasses, slid one across the table to me, and took a slow sip of her own. I picked up the glass, watching the amber liquid swirl under the dim light. She said she doesn't know if she made a mistake. Rebecca scoffed. She did. I looked up. You think so? She rolled her eyes. Oh, come on, Adam. Of course she did. She walked out thinking you'd fall apart without her. That you'd chase her. That you'd do exactly what she needed you to do to make herself feel better about what she did. I didn't say anything. Rebecca leaned forward, her voice quieter now. But you didn't. And that's messing with her. I exhaled, rubbing a hand over my face. So what do I do? She tilted her head. What do you want to do? That was the real question, wasn't it? Lauren had spent years making me question myself. Making me believe that if something was wrong, it was because I wasn't doing enough, wasn't giving enough, wasn't being enough. But for the first time in a long time, I felt like I had the control, and I wasn't sure I wanted to give it back to her. I glanced at my phone, still burning a hole in my pocket. Rebecca smirked. Let me guess. You want to text her back? I hesitated. She leaned back, crossing her legs. You can. If you want to. You can meet up with her, listen to whatever half-baked excuse she's about to give, let her spin you around in circles until you don't even remember why you were angry in the first place. I clenched my jaw. Or, she continued, swirling her whiskey, you can do what she never expected. I looked at her. And what's that? Rebecca's smirk deepened. Nothing. I let her words settle in my chest. Nothing. Not respond. Not give her the satisfaction. Not feed into the cycle she wanted to keep going. Just let her sit in it. For once, let her be the one left wondering. Rebecca reached over and plucked my phone from the table. She turned it over in her hand, then slid it across to me. Your choice. I stared at the screen. The messages still sat there, waiting. Lauren, I don't know if I made a mistake. Lauren, are you awake? Can we talk? I could picture her so clearly, sitting alone, her phone in her hands, waiting for me to rescue her from her own regret, the way I had always done before. I let out a slow breath, and then I locked the phone and put it face down on the table. Rebecca grinned. Good choice. I didn't know if it was. Not yet. But for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was the one making it. And that had to count for something. The next morning, I woke up to sunlight streaming through Rebecca's apartment window, my body stiff from sleeping on her couch. For a moment, I didn't move. I just let myself exist in that quiet space, in a place where Lauren's presence had never touched. Then, reality crept back in. I reached for my phone. 2 more messages from Lauren. Lauren, Adam, please. Lauren, just talk to me. I stared at the words, feeling nothing. Not anger. Not longing. Just nothing. I sat up, rubbing a hand over my face. Rebecca was already in the kitchen, making coffee, her hair tied up in a messy bun. She glanced at me and smirked. And so begins day 2 of Lauren's unraveling. I scoffed. It's not a game, Beck. She shrugged. To her it is. And she's losing. I exhaled, setting my phone face down on the table. I don't even know what she wants from me. Rebecca handed me a mug. Of course you do. I didn't answer. Because she was right. Lauren wanted me to give her an out. A way to escape the consequences of her choices. If I answered, if I met her somewhere and let her talk, she'd find a way to twist everything until I was the one apologizing. She was good at that. And for years, I had let her. Not anymore. I picked up my phone and deleted the messages. Rebecca raised an eyebrow. Damn. Cool. Necessary, I muttered. She grinned. I like this version of you. I huffed a laugh, shaking my head. You like the old version of me too. She smirked. Yeah, but this one's smarter. The rest of the day passed in a blur of distractions. I went back home, showered, threw myself into work, Anything to keep from thinking about Lauren. I almost convinced myself it was over. Until my phone rang that evening. I glanced at the screen. Lauren. I sighed. Part of me wanted to let it ring, let her feel the silence she had earned. But something told me this wasn't going to stop until I faced her. So, against my better judgment, I answered. I didn't say anything. Just waited. Lauren's breath hitched on the other end. Adam. She sounded off. Not demanding. Not confident. Just lost. I leaned back against the couch, keeping my voice even. What do you want, Lauren? A pause. Then, I need to see you. I let out a dry laugh. That's not happening. Please. Her voice cracked. It's important. I hesitated. There was something in her tone, something raw, and despite everything, curiosity tugged at me. I closed my eyes. Where? She was waiting for me at a park just outside the city. A quiet place, tucked between rows of trees, the benches damp from last night's rain. Lauren stood near the fountain, arms wrapped around herself, looking smaller than I remembered. When she saw me, she exhaled in relief, like I had just thrown her a lifeline. I didn't move any closer. Say what you need to say. Her eyes searched mine, desperate. I made a mistake. I huffed a laugh. Yeah, I figured that out 2 days ago. No, Adam, you don't understand. She took a shaky breath. It wasn't just a mistake. It was a setup. I frowned. What the hell are you talking about? She swallowed hard, looking away. Ethan. He wasn't who I thought he was. My jaw clenched. Ethan. The name that had shattered everything. She looked at me again, pleading. I ended it with him. But after I left, I started seeing things more clearly. He never loved me, Adam. He just wanted to ruin us. I stared at her, anger curling in my chest. You think that makes it better? No. She ran a hand through her hair, frustrated. He was using me. I didn't see it at the time, but looking back, he wanted me to leave you. He wanted to destroy what we had. I let out a slow breath. And you let him? She flinched. I shook my head, taking a step back. Lauren, you don't get to rewrite this story. You didn't trip and fall into an affair. You made a choice. Tears welled in her eyes. I know. Then why are we here? I asked, my voice tired. She swallowed hard. Because I realized something. I waited. She took a deep breath, stepping closer. I never loved him. Not the way I loved you. The past tense wasn't lost on me. Loved. Like it had an expiration date. She reached for my hand, but I didn't let her touch me. I was stupid, she whispered. And selfish. And I hate myself for what I did. But I can't. She broke off, her voice trembling. I can't let this be the end of us. I closed my eyes for a second, exhaling slowly. I had imagined this moment before. The apology. The regret. The tears. But now that it was here, it didn't feel like a victory. It felt empty. I met her gaze, steady. It was the end, Lauren. Her face crumpled. Adam, please. I shook my head. You made your choice. She swallowed hard, fresh tears spilling over. I love you. I believed her. And maybe, in some distant part of me, I still loved her too. But love wasn't enough. Not anymore. I took a step back, my voice quiet. Goodbye, Lauren. For the first time, she realized I meant it. And this time, there was no one left to save her from regret. I didn't look back. Not when she whispered my name one last time. Not when I heard her stifled sob. Not when her footsteps faltered behind me. I had spent too much of my life looking back, trying to fix, to salvage, to hold on. But not this time. This time, I walked away. The air was thick with the smell of wet earth as I made my way back to my car. The distant hum of the city loomed in the background. But out here, in this quiet little park where everything had just ended for the second and final time, it felt like the world had paused, like it was giving me a moment to breathe. I slid into the driver's seat, gripping the steering wheel, waiting for the wave of emotion to hit me. But nothing came. No anger, no grief, no overwhelming pain, just quiet. I exhaled slowly and turned the key in the ignition. Lauren had gotten what she wanted. Not the outcome, maybe, but the moment. The chance to say her piece, to spill her regret onto the pavement like an offering, hoping I'd take it back. But I hadn't. And that was the part she never saw coming. As I pulled onto the highway, my phone buzzed against the dashboard. I glanced at the screen. Rebecca. I tapped the Bluetooth button on the steering wheel, answering with a low, "Hey. You sound weird," she said immediately. What happened? I let out a short laugh. What? You don't think I always sound weird? Adam. Her voice was softer now. Talk to me. I sighed, drumming my fingers against the wheel. I saw her. Silence. Then, and she wanted me to forgive her. Rebecca scoffed. Of course she did. She said she never really loved him. That she was manipulated. Classic. She said she still loves me. Rebecca hesitated for half a second before asking, "And what did you say?" I swallowed. I told her goodbye. A beat of silence. Then, Rebecca exhaled, and I could hear the smile in her voice when she said, "Damn right. You did." I laughed, really laughed, for the first time in what felt like months. It felt good, like shedding old skin. Rebecca hummed. So now what? Now what? That was the real question, wasn't it? For so long, my life had been entangled with Lawrence. Every decision, every plan, every moment had been tied to her in some way. And now, for the first time in years, it wasn't. I was free. I let the idea settle in my chest, rolling it around, testing its weight. I don't know, I admitted. But for once, that doesn't scare me. Rebecca chuckled. Good. Because I'm pretty sure the old Adam would have spiraled into some existential crisis right about now. Yeah, well, I smirked. Old Adam was kind of an idiot. She laughed. Agreed. I merged onto the freeway, the city skyline stretching out ahead of me. The lights glowed against the dark sky, a reminder that life kept moving forward, even when it felt like it shouldn't. Especially then. Rebecca's voice softened. You know, I'm proud of you. The words hit something deep, something raw. I gripped the wheel tighter. Yeah, she said. You finally chose yourself. I exhaled, the weight of it all settling in. For years, I had been trying to hold on to something that was already gone. And now, I was letting go. And it felt like the first real thing I had done in a long, long time. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, the quiet hum of the city filtering in through the window. I expected sleep to be difficult. Expected the what-ifs to claw at the edges of my mind, demanding answers I didn't have. But the only thing I felt was peace. I turned onto my side, reaching for my phone. Not to check for messages from Lauren. I had already blocked her number before I got home. Instead, I scrolled through old photos, my thumb hovering over memories I no longer wanted to carry. I selected them all and deleted them. The past belonged in the past. And for the first time, I was ready to leave it there. I woke up to sunlight cutting through my bedroom window, slicing across the sheets in soft golden lines. It took me a moment to remember that I had slept through the night without waking up, without tossing and turning, without the weight of Lauren's betrayal pressing down on my chest. It was over. Really, truly over. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't wake up feeling like I was carrying something broken inside of me. I rolled out of bed, stretching as I made my way to the kitchen. The house was still too quiet. But now, it wasn't the kind of silence that suffocated. It was a clean slate, a new beginning. I poured myself a cup of coffee, took a slow sip, and exhaled. There was something about this morning, something different. Maybe it was the fact that I hadn't checked my phone expecting to see Lauren's name. Maybe it was the fact that I didn't care where she was, or what she was doing, or if she had finally realized the full weight of what she'd lost. That part of my life was closed, and I wasn't looking back. Rebecca showed up unannounced later that morning, 2 iced coffees in hand, a smirk already in place before I even opened the door. Figured you'd need reinforcements, she said, shoving one of the cups into my hand. I chuckled, stepping aside to let her in. For what? She dropped onto my couch like she owned the place, stretching her legs across the cushions. Your first official day as a free man. I rolled my eyes, taking a sip of the coffee. It's not that dramatic, Beck. She shot me a look. Adam, your entire life has revolved around that woman for years. And now, you get to just be. That's a big deal. I hesitated, looking around the house. She wasn't wrong. For the past 5 years, every choice I had made, every plan, every decision, every sacrifice, had been tied to Lauren. And now, with that weight gone, I was standing at the edge of something I hadn't felt in a long time. Possibility. Rebecca grinned. So what's the plan? I raised an eyebrow. The plan. She gestured vaguely. Yeah. You know, now that you're not spending all your time trying to make a selfish woman happy, what are you going to do with yourself? I scoffed. Oh, I don't know, Beck. Maybe just exist for a little while. She rolled her eyes. Lame. I chuckled. Okay, then, what do you suggest? She sat up, tapping a finger against her chin like she was deep in thought. Then her eyes lit up. Road trip. I blinked. What? Road trip, she repeated, like it was obvious. Get in the car, pick a direction, and just go. No plan, no obligations, no past weighing you down. Just you and the open road. I hesitated. A road trip. It was stupid, impulsive, completely out of character for me. And yet, something about it made my chest feel lighter. Rebecca grinned. You're thinking about it, aren't you? I sighed, shaking my head. Maybe. Good, she said, standing up and clapping her hands together. Because I already packed a bag. I stared at her. Are you serious? She smirked. Come on, Adam. You didn't think I was going to let you go on some emotional healing journey alone, did you? I huffed a laugh, rubbing a hand over my face. You're ridiculous. And you need this, she countered. I opened my mouth to argue, but then I thought about it. Really thought about it. What was stopping me? Nothing. For the first time in years, I had no one to answer to. No one waiting for me to fix something that wasn't my fault. No one expecting me to be anything other than exactly who I was. So, I exhaled, grabbed my keys, and looked at her. All right, Beck. Let's go. Her face split into a victorious grin. Damn right. The highway stretched ahead of us, miles of open road disappearing into the horizon. The windows were rolled down, warm air rushing in as music played through the speakers. Rebecca drummed her fingers against the dashboard, glancing over at me. How do you feel? I thought about it for a second. Then I smiled. Free. She grinned, kicking her feet up onto the dashboard. Good. Because this is just the beginning. And for the first time, I believed her. I wasn't running from something. I was running toward whatever came next. And that was the best feeling in the world.